Alright, hey everyone, so we're going to jump into today's video talking about your dog giving you attention outside. As you can clearly see by Wrigley here, we are starting inside. Now, what I'm doing with her right here is a little game that I like to call Ready, Find It. So what this game is involving is literally it's just me tossing a treat to her. It's free treats. It gets her really pumped up and engaged with me. And I'm kind of crouching down here tossing her treats. She really likes to catch treats too, so I kind of toss those in with the treats on the ground as well for this game. But it's really about getting your dog engaged with you and really wanting to work with you and just getting them very excited in preparation for the next training that we're going to be doing. So next what we're going into is moving on from that Ready, Find It game. I'm actually just clicking and treating Wrigley for giving me eye contact. I'm not saying anything to her, I'm just waiting for her to look up off of the ground, and then the moment she does, clicking and marking that eye contact and delivering a treat to her afterwards. And what I'm doing too is I'm strategically placing the treats or tossing the treats on the ground to reset her for the next repetition. So what I'll do is click the moment she gives me eye contact, toss the treat on the ground for the next repetition. She's naturally going to start to look up at me more often when she realizes, oh, I just get treats when I look at you. Cool. And for right now, you guys, if your dog is not looking directly in your eyes, that is okay. We will narrow that down later on. I'll do a more specific video of how to get that. Now here we're switching over to the same thing we were just doing. We're just outside now. You will notice that I am hand feeding Wrigley. I would switch that over to, again, just dropping the treats on the ground. She kind of knows the repetition of this game already, but putting the treats on the ground just like we were doing inside. And I strategically have her out on the porch first. It is outside. She can hear, smell all the different things outside, but it is a little bit more distracting. So here we actually have another dog walking past our apartment building, and I am choosing to click and treat her for looking at the dog calmly. I will talk more about this. You guys will see more of it later in my video, but she gets clicks and treats, bonus clicks and treats for looking at that other dog calmly. And what will start to happen right there is she actually starts to look back at me on her own because she expects that treat coming. Alright, so here we are in a brand new location. This actually is not new to Wrigley. This is just the park right by our house. She's quite familiar with it, but I'm going to take the first 10 to 20 minutes before I do training with her to just let her take things in. If I try to ask her to pay attention to me 100% right off the bat, that's just not going to happen. I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not going to ask her to do anything in this time. This time is totally for her. I have her on a 30-foot long line just to make sure she does stay with me and doesn't take off, but this is totally her time. I do recommend doing the same thing with your own dogs in a location like this and just letting them explore their environment before you ask anything, even just eye contact of them. We will get there. I promise. That is coming next, but for right now, we're just going to run around, have a good time. So now we are going to start increasing our expectations. This is after that 20-minute warm-up session. I'm just looking for Wrigley to start to randomly offer me eye contact. I, again, am not cueing her to do anything, but she's had the chance to take in her environment, and what you'll see happen is she's starting to be like, huh, okay, I've sniffed around, you look like you might be interesting, and you have good things, and I take every opportunity to reward that eye contact that I get from her.
Good.
The other thing to note here is I am reinforcing with one very high value food. I'm using ham, and I'm rewarding very generously. She gets multiple treats for just looking at me once. I'll go into this more later in the video, but this is going to create more of a positive interaction with your dog, and you're going to start to notice that they start to want to interact with you more and more throughout the session. So here I'm actually starting to call Wrigley's name and asking her to respond to her name. Again, this is something that I did work on inside first, and I would suggest working on inside first before you even start to take it outside. So again, she's getting lots of rewards for paying attention to me when I call her name, and then I actually do release her again to go sniff her environment with a release cue that I will talk about later too. But releasing her back to go sniff, which is something she really wanted to do, is also part of the reward for this.
Good job.
At this point, I do have Wrigley's full attention on me, and a lot of this is really due to all that warm-up stuff that we did. So starting with going around the park, investigating, letting her sniff, and just explore around on her own, and then slowly starting to ask for her attention. This really builds up just kind of the capability of your dog being able to focus. Now, if your dogs are not getting this level of focus the first, second, third time that you take them out there, that's okay. Don't stress. Dog training is a marathon, it's not a sprint. I like to equate working a dog in a park like this, especially an environment-oriented dog like Wrigley here, is really like taking your kids to Disneyland. You're not going to be able to take your kid to Disneyland, have them sit down and do math homework. Taking your dog to a park like this is the Disneyland equivalent to your dog. It's going to be hard, and it's going to take a little bit of time for your dog to work up to be able to give you that 100% attention. Now, here I'm starting to sprinkle in a couple of those known behaviors. I like to go with down, sit, and touch for Wrigley. She knows all of those very, very well and is very confident and happy about doing them outside. I definitely recommend pick behaviors your dog enjoys to start with outside. And then we're going to go right back into that ready, find it game again, adding some distance and clicking the moment she turns around and looks at me with multiple treats tossed in the grass for her again to reset. So at this point, we are working with some distractions in the park. We actually have a couple dogs over in the distance that I'm working with here. Initially clicking and treating Wrigley for just looking calmly over at the other dogs. Here you can see she's very interested. And then I'm switching to clicking and treating her for actually looking back at me. And this will become a repetition with your dog too. Look at the other dog. That is now a predictor of food coming from you. And you can see here now her full attention is on me. Those dogs are still over there, but she's starting to realize, hey, it actually really pays off for me to stay here, and I just get treats for looking over at that other dog. Awesome, I want to stay right here. And now she's very nicely laying down. That is definitely a signal to me that she's comfortable. So I'm releasing her and tossing a find it treat away. Okay, this is for all my toy motivated dogs out there. So, you know who you are. If your dog is really interested in toys, it is a fantastic thing to bring to the park with you to create that engagement. Now, that being said, not all dogs like to play with toys outside or are even toy motivated. This becomes very important when you are asking for your dog's attention outside. If you're really trying to get them engaged in a toy, that's fantastic, but practice it inside first. If Wrigley was not very motivated by toys outside, I would not have bothered to bring toys with me. Sniffing the grass, sniffing the trees, going to chase ready find it treats, using food in general are great alternative reinforcers. However, Wrigley is a pretty toy motivated dog, so I also use toys as a reinforcer for her. A little trick to get your dog to be more motivated by toys: make that toy seem like the coolest thing on the planet. I promise you your dog will be more interested in it if you fully believe it is the coolest thing ever. Here we had another dog walk into the picture, so I switched back to rewarding her for looking at the dog and looking back at me. I actually stopped using the toy at this point because other dogs to Wrigley actually do predict the food. In general, you can absolutely continue to use the toy in this setting, but because she's so accustomed to getting food rewards when it comes to other dogs, that is more reinforcing to her in that moment. Now, a note about this too, switching between food and toy reinforcers for a lot of dogs can be very difficult. This is actually something that I had to teach Wrigley. Stop playing with your toy so I can give you food, stop eating food so we can play with your toy. A lot of times I do recommend starting with those behaviors in the house first and then gradually taking them outside. Then it will be a lot easier for your dog to be able to switch back and forth.